Kid with a real boxer, real world champion boxer. That the only other time he was in full defense to get mad with that was against Fury's Tommy Fury, but it wasn't that level, obviously. And all the size things you just rightfully pointed out. But he would have been in there with, you know, I mean, it seemed crazy.
Gervonta Tank Davis has shocked the boxing community with his incredible new physique ahead of his much-anticipated clash with Jake Paul. Known for his compact, explosive frame and raw knockout power, Davis appears to have transformed himself physically, adding noticeable muscle mass and definition. Recent footage from his training sessions reveals a thicker, more imposing version of Tank, the kind of transformation that has fans and experts alike buzzing with speculation. Many believe Davis is deliberately bulking up to counter Jake Paul's natural size and strength, preparing to meet the YouTuber-turned-boxer head-on in both power and presence.
You were yelling so much about him fighting someone, fight somebody your size. His next opponent is, by far, the most credentialed guy ever fought, actively, in his prime. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. He fights at 135.
In the build-up to his fight with Jake Paul, Davis seems to have declared war on weakness. His training has reportedly become more intense than ever, featuring high-volume strength work, relentless conditioning, and brutal sparring sessions designed to test both endurance and resilience. Reports suggest Tank has introduced heavier compound lifts and resistance-based exercises to his regimen, significantly boosting his upper body and core strength. Despite the added bulk, he continues to train for speed and footwork to maintain his trademark agility. To further prepare, he's been sparring with larger, more physical partners, even heavyweights, forcing his body to adapt to the kind of size and strength he'll face in the ring with Jake Paul.
Yeah, this Santa Cruz out here today. You can't let it burn, baby, let it burn. Mind over matter, son, mind over matter.
This is the blues.
Ain't nobody doing no shit like this. Come in the desert. Nigga trying to stay away from the desert. He come in the desert.
When the night
Camera. Oh,
Okay, light, camera, action.
Light, action. Camera.
Come on, Ted. Come on, Ted. Turn him out. Turn him out, Ted. Dig down in there. Dig down in there.
10 seconds.
Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Remember that gun on it? They got that gun on that tank. They go time.
when the night is cold.
Hey, we'll keep you here late tonight. Good job.
It's been hard being away from my daughter. You know, she actually here, she sleep. Just being away from her, it was a little touchy, but I know when I'm up, you know, up against, you know, I know that I got pay-per-view. You know, I know I'm fighting a tough opponent, so really I know how to lock in. I know how to shy away from everything. I know how to, like, I know how to fool around. I said 10 No, don't do that.
However, the physical gap between the two fighters remains staggering. Jake Paul, a naturally heavier athlete, enters the fight under a 195-pound limit, while Davis typically competes around 135 pounds, a 60-pound divide. Both fighters will wear 12-ounce gloves, but critics argue that no equipment or conditioning can fully offset such an imbalance. Many worry that adding mass might cost Davis his biggest advantages: speed, sharpness, and explosive timing, the very attributes that define his style. The challenge for Davis is walking a razor-thin line, adding size without sacrificing what makes him dangerous.
Paul, Tank Davis fight got moved to Miami.
I think Jake wins.
Jake's just so big, dude.
I think Jake wins.
This is different because it's similar. It's similar to Logan versus Mayweather, but
Jake
Jake
has better
Paul.
boxing.
now, obviously, is way more advanced than where Logan was at that moment in time.
I mean, it's just
fucking sick.
I mean, yeah. No, but dude,
You
Jake.
ever watch his highlights?
Jake can
He's
crack,
nasty.
man.
He's so sick. I love that guy, bro.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skills, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum.
UFC President Dana White didn't hold back when asked about the rumored matchup. He bluntly admitted that most fans aren't genuinely excited about the fight, though he acknowledged that it might still benefit Davis. White explained that Tank has faced a difficult period lately, dealing with negative headlines and declining public momentum. In that sense, Jake Paul's lucrative offer arrived at the perfect time, a chance for Davis to regain visibility and financial leverage. Dana argued that while many see the matchup as gimmicky, it could give Tank a much-needed spotlight and payday. From a competitive perspective, White believes Paul's height, reach, and natural strength would allow him to bully Davis in the ring, leaning on him, clinching, and neutralizing his offense. While Davis's technical skills are unquestionable, White warns that bringing a lightweight champion into the physical realm of a cruiserweight may erase those advantages. In his eyes, this fight is less about skill and more about whether Davis can survive the sheer physicality that Jake Paul brings.
Is picking Jake Paul to beat Gervonta Davis. This is not a fight that I'm excited for at all. I would rather have Gervonta Davis fighting in a real boxing match against the likes of Lamont Roach, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis, Emmanuel Navarrete, anybody that is in the 135-pound division and around. That's who I want to see Gervonta Davis fight. However, we live in a world where everybody is trying to do things as big as possible. And the biggest fights possible right now, unfortunately for the sport of boxing, is an exhibition fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. So, I do like it for this reason though. I like it because it is allowing Gervonta Davis to have a fight that is going to be big and that the mainstream media is going to have to cover, the mainstream media outside the world of boxing. Gervonta Davis has been, without a doubt, blocked, having venues blocked, having fighters, having other promoters paying fighters away to go different directions from Gervonta Davis. So Gervonta Davis was in a bit of a hole. And he gets an opportunity to fight Jake Paul for $200 million or whatever. I don't mind it at all. As long as Gervonta Davis comes back to the world of boxing after he gets done with this, hey man, you got your money, no worries. But you gotta love Dana White having the audacity to pick Jake Paul in this fight and says something to the effect that, hey, he was talking to Logan Paul and said, hey, when you were fighting Floyd, you know, there was this, you're a gigantic guy, big size difference. There was a time when Floyd Mayweather Jr. hit, had an overhand right that landed flush on Jake Paul, on Logan Paul.
Bare-knuckle fighter and former UFC standout Mike Perry also weighed in, accusing Davis of taking what he called a cash grab fight instead of pursuing real boxing challenges. Perry questioned whether Tank still has the same drive and hunger that once made him a champion. To him, facing a social media star suggests that Davis has shifted focus from legacy to lifestyle, chasing fame and money rather than glory. Perry even went so far as to claim that Jake Paul's work ethic might now surpass Davis's, sparking heated debates among fans about Tank's true motivations and commitment to the sport.
Jake is big, Tank has a lot of skill, but I don't think he's the same Tank that we saw the most incredible knockouts. We saw him, Lamont Roach performed great. They went to draw. And, you know, I just don't know. And Tank walked away. I don't know if he loves it enough to beat a guy who outweighs him by 80 to 100 pounds.
During the face-off with Jake Paul, observers noticed something rare. Gervonta Davis looked uneasy. Known for his steely confidence, Tank's body language seemed uncharacteristically tense. Analysts pointed out the limited eye contact, the stiff posture, and the tight-lipped expression. Some believed the drastic size difference had finally become real to him in that moment. Standing across from the visibly larger Jake Paul, Davis appeared to grasp the physical mountain ahead. While loyal fans defended his demeanor as calm focus, critics interpreted it as doubt creeping in for the first time.
Tank looked very uncomfortable facing off. He just did. I've seen other face-off this Tank done. He gets in their face and they're intense and he looks good. He looked very meager up there. You've had 8 fights and you're gonna go tangle with Tank Davis. And the story instantly comes out. Jake is so much bigger. There is such a compliment to Jake within that insult. It is meant to be an insult. It is meant to take away from a potentially glorious moment for Jake. But where the compliment comes is it means the public believes he's gonna win.
Boxing veteran Teddy Atlas reacted to the face-off by emphasizing just how extreme the size gap is between the two fighters. He joked that Tank is so much smaller than Jake, he might need a ladder just to reach Paul's chin. While Atlas acknowledged that boxing thrives on differences in style and skill, he stressed that the physical disparity here borders on absurd. Comparing it to hypothetical matchups like Canelo Alvarez moving up to fight Terence Crawford, Atlas pointed out that even in those scenarios, the size gap was never this wide. For him, the Paul vs. Davis fight feels more like a spectacle than a sporting event, a mismatch from the start.
He's right. They should also have like the size of the ring, the size of the glove, all that stuff particulars should be in the contract. But I would probably look for one thing that is not the common thing to have in a contract if I'm Tank. A ladder. A ladder. Can I get a ladder? Somebody? You know what I mean? Hey, look, if he hits him on the chin the way he can punch, Jake might be doing a dance. You know what I mean? Not voluntarily either. But we'll get into that more later. The thing that I'm talking about right here is what you said. It was stark. The size difference was really, you couldn't ignore it. We understand the talent difference, the experience difference. We understand all of that. But the size, the pure, and we understand small guys can beat big guys. We just saw Crawford do it to Canelo, but you know, a little different. The size difference was, I mean, it was eye-catching, jaw-dropping, and it made me think, and I'm going to ask Richie, our man here who's doing all the taping, who does such a marvelous job. I'm going to ask him, because I know he's an expert in this area, but it reminded me of one of the Rocky movies where they had the face, where they did the wrestling thing with Rocky and Hulk Hogan, a.k.a. Thunder Lips. He was Thunder Lips back there. And I thought I had it right, and it was confirmed to me. It's Rocky.
Fellow champion Shakur Stevenson didn't hold back his thoughts either, calling the fight terrible for boxing. He argued that the matchup makes no competitive sense and exists solely for financial gain. Stevenson said the massive size difference between Paul and Davis strips away any authenticity the bout might have had. Instead of celebrating skill or technique, it becomes a money-driven spectacle, one that does little to advance the sport he loves.
He'll fight Jake Paul instead. What do you think of that?
I think that's terrible.
Why?
I mean, I get it, because at the end of the day, it's the money business, and you want to make the most money, but from what I'm hearing, he can make more money in a fight with me, and if that's the case, why not fight me?
Sure. Do you think he beats Jake Paul?
Do I think he beats Jake? Yeah, I mean...
There's a huge size advantage, though.
It is, but I think Tank got the skills to make sure he come out on top.
Do you think that Jake has gone better?
Yeah, I think actually Jake got tremendously better from the time frame that he started till now. And in the right situation, I also could see him become a world champion.
Really?
Leonard Ellerby offered insight into Davis's recent struggles, explaining that Tank has been dealing with heavy personal challenges outside the ring. These pressures, he said, sapped Davis's motivation and focus, which is why certain expected fights such as a matchup with Lamont Roach never materialized. Ellerbe revealed that during that time, Davis wasn't mentally prepared for additional stress or public scrutiny. He prioritized personal balance over competition, choosing to step back rather than push himself into a fight he wasn't ready for. According to Ellerbe, that decision reflected maturity rather than weakness.
Leonard Ellerbe said, to tell you the truth, Gervonta Davis couldn't get up for Lamont Roach. And what does that mean? It means that he could not get inspired, that he was not motivated to fight Lamont Roach, that his mind was not in a place where it was like, yeah, okay, let's get it, and he was going to war with Lamont Roach. He was going through the motions with Lamont Roach during the training camp and could never really get himself motivated to really give the best of himself against Lamont Roach, and that probably affected him during training and during the fight. And that is something that can happen, especially if you really look back on what happened with the Lamont Roach fight and all of the ups and downs about that fight being made. Because first, if you recall, he wasn't supposed to be fighting Lamont Roach. The person he was supposed to be fighting was Vasily Lomachenko. You know, the guy that everybody says that he doesn't want to fight, that he didn't want to fight. Gervonta Davis was up and prepared to fight Vasily.
Jake Paul's approach to boxing has always blurred the line between sport and show business. Instead of chasing rankings or legitimate titles, he builds matchups that maximize views, clicks, and controversy. By hand-picking opponents, from retired MMA fighters to undersized boxers like Gervonta Davis, Paul ensures his fights dominate headlines and social media feeds. This strategy has made him one of the most talked about names in boxing, but also one of its most divisive figures. The proposed fight with Davis highlights this perfectly. Jake, a natural cruiserweight, stands around 6 feet 1 inch with a 76-inch reach, while Davis is just 5 feet 5 inches and fights best near 130 pounds. That difference gives Jake an enormous edge in reach, frame, and durability. While Tank's power and speed have made him a star in his own divisions, stepping into Paul's weight class could expose him to physical disadvantages too steep to overcome.
Holy shit, Jake Paul versus Tank Davis is actually happening. What the f is going on? I guess Tank is going broke because that's the only justifiable reason you ruin your legacy against a guy like Jake Paul. And yes, I do think Jake Paul is going to win. Tank Davis is a much better boxer and has crazy power, but he's 5'5", 130. That power is not going to carry over against someone who is 6'1", 210. And it's not like Jake is bad. Yes, his fights are boring. He says he's going to step in the ring and sleep his opponents, but the only people who end up sleeping are the audience. Mike Tyson fight. But at the end of the day, he's a big guy with power who's training boxing full time, and he has beaten some legitimate competition. Woodley, Nate Diaz, Anderson Silva, Mike Perry had a competitive fight with Tommy Fury, but it's crazy how particular Jake has to be when selecting his opponents. They have to have enough clout to be interesting, enough skill to be taken seriously as a threat, but at the same time have clear weaknesses and disadvantages that Jake and his team can exploit to win. Now that he's fighting an elite boxer, he has to fight someone 7 weight classes down. I mean, Tank could win if he makes Jake do a very aggressive weight cut, but I just don't see that happening. I got Jake by 3rd round TKO. He should put me on the co-main event and allow me to fight Francis Ngannou. That would be an easy first round knockout.
MMA legend Nate Diaz dismissed the entire fight outright, saying he has no interest in predicting or even watching it. According to Diaz, this is not a real competition, it's a money show disguised as sport. He accused modern boxing of drifting toward staged, pay-per-view driven events that prioritize entertainment over authenticity. For Diaz, matchups like Paul versus Davis undermine the essence of combat sports, where respect, risk, and real rivalry are supposed to matter most. He sees it as another symptom of the sport losing its integrity in pursuit of profit.
I gotta ask you, Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis. Does Davis have a chance?
Gervonta is a great boxer, but he ain't gonna be.
So you got Jake Paul by knockout, or?
No, I don't got anybody, but I don't think.
He's just too small.
It's just. I don't want to beat up somebody that small. I don't want to. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think of the fight?
I don't want to lose to somebody that. There's no point in the fight. It's a great fight, actually. I'm not hating on the fight, but I think my thoughts on it is let's watch and see what happens.
Ryan Garcia said his boxing is turning into WWE.
Yeah, that's,
with that type of matchup. What do you agree? Last thing, White House card, like he said, you want Conor McGregor?
Yeah, but the whole thing's at WWE. So
right.
It's like, at least that's happening and getting something to talk about, something to watch. And I'm looking forward to that.
Michael Bisping once again voiced his frustration about the state of boxing and the trend of extreme mismatch fights. He emphasized that Jake Paul fighting someone nearly 100 pounds lighter is completely against the spirit of the sport. Reflecting on Jake's planned bout with 58-year-old Mike Tyson, Bisping said these kinds of matchups only exist to grab attention, not to advance boxing as a discipline. He noted that instead of promoting legitimate championship contests or rivalries, promoters increasingly push crossover fights that blurred the line between sport and spectacle. The proposed Paul vs. Davis fight, in his eyes, is just another example of how boxing is losing its competitive soul to entertainment culture.
That is at least 65 pounds heavier than you. That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the baddest man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing? What don't you understand about this? If you want respect from your peers, if you want everyone on the planet to look at you and take you seriously and give you credit as a boxer, you have to take on challenges that are real. You have to go up against someone that keeps you up at night, against someone that gets you out of bed in the morning to go for a run because the fear of them beating you down is real. Not going up against someone that is so small. If you were to go up to this guy in a bar and try and start a fight with them, people would look at you and say one word, whoa, stop being such a bully, leave him alone. You are way bigger than this guy. And that's clearly what we have here. It is ridiculous. When you look at the tail of the tape, Gervonta Tank Davis, granted, a very, very skilled boxer, a world champion. He's had some great wins. He's had a tremendous career. He's got 28 knockouts on his record. I'm just looking at the tail of the tape here. 30 years old, Jake Paul, 28. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" tall, whereas Jake Paul is 6'1". I would never dream on picking on a guy that is 5'5" tall. Granted, there's some tough guys out there that are 5'5", okay? They're smaller guys, you know, but for 5'5", they'll pack a good punch. Typically, they're mixed martial artists or boxers.
And so, the question remains, is this fight an exciting crossover event that brings new eyes to boxing, or just another publicity stunt that damages the sport's credibility? Fans are divided, the experts are conflicted, and the world is watching to see whether Gervonta Davis's daring move will redefine his legacy or risk everything he's built.